Buenos dias, buenos tardes, all of that fun stuff. Welcome to Week in Crypto. I am Trekkw2ks, and this episode, this series, this segment of what I do is brought to you here on the Gentleman Crypto YouTube channel. And if you don't know, the basic idea is I cover the weekend events as far as crypto-related news that happen from Friday to Sunday. I pop it out 08 Monday morning, and I try to do that from a standpoint of event-driven news that centers around either a company or product or some of the technology, innovation, things that happen within this space, and then make that crypto connection, but put some context to it. It's not about price talk. It's not about, spilling the tea on nothing. So if you've been with me for a while, you understand where I'm at. For the new folks, thank you for tapping in. I do appreciate. I just want to give you the heads up on how I present this stuff. If you are interested in the price talk stuff, though, we definitely got a number of other folks who drop things in a more price talk perspective. King is really good at that. He comes on at the 10 o'clock-ish hour. Black Rue, he good at that too. So, if that's your cup of tea, we got other folks on here who do it. Other than that, we're gonna get into these stories. Before I do that though, let me say, thank y'all for the folks who are still tapping in. I do appreciate. I've been kind of doing a different format now with the no visual side, as far as me, and folks are still coming through. I appreciate that. Thank y'all. And I mean, that's all I got right now for that one. So let's just jump into these stories. Here we go. So for this first story, I've been saying this for the last couple of months. I've been seeing what Daily Hodl has been doing, and they've been integrating other financial related news into their regular publishing cycle. And even though sometimes it is not, here's what I'll say. They don't do a good job at correlating, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, they don't do a good job at making the correlation of how this plays out in the crypto space, as well as they're definitely pro law enforcement and pro regulation in regards to how they frame topics and articles. At least this is my opinion on it. You don't have to agree with me. Do remember, comments is always open. I always do provide the links for these articles that I cover, so you can definitely do your own due diligence. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do your own due diligence in cross-referencing these stories and the things that I talk about and how I have my perspective on it. Remember, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know what your financial situation is or life situation. So I highly encourage you to do your own due diligence and cross-reference these things that I talk about and see if they make sense to you or not. But nonetheless, let's get into this situation right here. I'm not going to go through every line of this, but the bottom line is BRICS member India ditches US dollar, purchases 1 million barrels of oil with rupees for the first time ever. So what you have to understand in putting this title in context is this is definitely a major event within the oil market as far as what has been the traditional route of how, thanks to what OPEC has done in part with the US in making it that the US dollar was the exchange of medium that every other currency had to go through. And since OPEC, as far as the Arab countries, and it's one of the other, it's like two other countries outside of the Arabic region that also are part of it, but the main players are the Arab countries. And so with that, it's like, hey, we're only going to sell you oil if you're doing it in the USD. But now they're like, all right, we see the writing on the wall. We're going to let anybody who has a currency that can be exchanged for value of the product that we have, we down to sell it. So here you have it that since India got into the oil market, at least how I understand it, they've never used their own currency to purchase oil. And now, guess what? That's what they just did. And so this is a very big deal. I'm gonna jump into a couple of lines here. I don't think this was a great image. But anywho, BRIC member India has reportedly purchased oil from the United Arab Emirates, aka the UAE, using its national currency for the first time ever. In July, reports surfaced that India and the UAE had inked a agreement that allowed the BRICS member to use rupees instead of US dollars when trading in the Middle Eastern nation. Last week, the two nations appear to have started trading using their local currencies for energy company India Oil, after energy company India Oil made payments in rupees for purchasing 1 million barrels of oil from the state-owned Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, reported Reuters. India is not the only BRIC nation to purchase energy from the UAE without going through the US dollar. In March, the oil and gas company, China National Offshore Oil Corporation, reportedly paid in yen to import 65,000 tons of liquefied natural gas from the UAE. I'm gonna just stop it there. You get the point of where I'm going. Here's the thing to note. This is a major event. In my mind, this is putting them one or two steps away from implementing some version of either CBDCs or cryptocurrencies. And there's a couple reasons why I'm saying this. In part is last year, one, you had it that Venezuela was selling oil for crypto. The US put a whole stop to that. I talked about this a couple months back when the story started coming out about how they were cleaning house for the agency that they put together, or the department that they put together that was supposed to figure out how to integrate crypto into the economy. And when they did, the US then turned around and was like, nah, y'all can't do that, because it was a whole nother thing going on with when they started sanctioning Russia, and something else was happening, that there was oil flowing from Venezuela somewhere else, and the US didn't like it. Point being is, we already seen one example of how cryptocurrency could be used to sell a real world physical commodity, right? And this is at the bilateral level of like government national trade level stuff. That's what was going on. So now you bring this situation where the countries that have their own sovereign currency, and like I said, Abu Dhabi, United Emirates, Iran, and it's a couple of other players, are now like, well, you know what? We're not worried about it being in the US dollar. Why? Because I imagine their number crunchers were probably pushing this out more than 5 years ago. It was just a matter of them waiting for the opportunity to present itself. So for everybody who like jump on the bandwagon of, oh yeah, it's a great thing that the US sanctioned Russia, and it's the great thing that, you know, we should sanction more people. This is what happens when you use sanctions as a financial tyrannical instrument against other nations. Eventually, it might take a minute, but eventually you make enough of a situation that folks will figure out another way to not deal with you. And I think, in my small non-professional economic opinion, this is what we see playing out in front of us. India is the first country to actually make the exchange. Now we have China that followed in the exchange. Granted, it was in a smaller amount because it was only 65,000 versus a million worth of oil. But the point being is that it's happening. It's not gonna happen. It's happening. Present tense. Okay? And so now the question then plays into, how does the US over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months try to counter it? Because we're going into winter. And this is the other part of the scenario where if Western and Eastern Europe, well, really more so Eastern Europe, just got their legs cut off from their gas feed cut off from them via what was going through Ukraine, via what was coming from Russia, where are they going to turn around and buy? And then y'all got to remember, last year we was giving away our special oil reserves to China. We was selling to China. We was giving to Ukraine. And we was giving to a couple other European countries. Like, so where does the crypto part relate to all of this? The crypto part relates to this in that the US is going to do something to try to counter what's going on here. Europe is going to fall in lockstep, begrudgingly, as some folks might say. But Russia already said, hey, and I covered this a couple weeks ago, Russia already said, we're going to be cool with whatever country has CBDCs. We're going to be cool with it. And I was covering since last year, Russia was already setting up the legal framework for cryptocurrencies and tokenization of real world assets to be integrated into their financial system. So you tell me, you know, you got the thing that the people want in the streets, but you don't want to deal in a particular currency. You have other options of a means of exchange and a medium of exchange, right? So you have the blockchain technology, you have whatever crypto or Bitcoin thing you use, as well as I think that there will be a period of CBDC stuff. I don't necessarily know if I see it lasting long, but it's going to be a growing pain process of the US and Western allied people or groups, let's say nations, trying to figure out how to counter this situation. And in my mind, it puts us first at the CBDC door, and eventually it will put us to more of some type of blockchain solution, whether it be one of these cryptocurrencies, as some people might argue with, you know, the stable coins, or if it's a Bitcoin thing, or if it's an Ethereum thing. I don't know that part of it. What I do know is this is an event. It is a very big indicator of what is coming down the pike, and it's going to be some growing pains to it. That's the bottom line. And it's not, let me also put in a caveat of, the growing pain isn't going to be for who us in the West keep getting told that it's going to be. Like, Russia's economy didn't crumble. China's economy, granted, it's doing what it's doing on a bigger scale, but it's not like it's being a failed state. right? So anywho, I'm gonna jump off of that one. But again, follow up on this one because I'm telling you, this is a notable event and it does lead to crypto. And this is what I'm saying. Like even in the rest of the article, they don't give it the connection of like, well, where's the subtext or how does this relate? They just talk about these financial stories and kind of let them sit in their own thing, even though I don't know, it might be just me and how I'm able to like make those connections. I could be totally wrong though. Then again, I could be totally wrong. So here's this next one. And this story actually, in my mind, again, this is how things work in my head. It connects to another story that I'm gonna get into in a minute. So Glassnode and ARK Invest introduced Coin Time Economics, a new model to measure Bitcoin's value. So, again, not gonna read this whole thing, but I highly encourage y'all to follow up on the article or go onto ARK Investment's website because they're very public with sharing their reports and their information and stuff. I will give it to Kathy in that she's very big on transparency as far as like how the company is moving with their investments and stuff like that in their reports. So definitely follow up on this to do your own due diligence and then hopefully it'll give you a better connection of like why I'm saying what I'm saying about this. So I'm gonna jump into the first two paragraphs. Researchers from Glassnode and ARK Invest have collaborated to develop a new economic model for analyzing Bitcoin's on-chain metrics called Coin Time Economics. The framework offers an alternative way to measure the economic activity and value of Bitcoin based on coin blocks rather than the standard accounting method of unspent transactions, output, or UTXOs. Now, when I first read that, I was like, all right, like, where does this go? What do you mean coin blocks? Like, are we adding in a new instrument or something? Let's get into this a little bit. And I have a thought process behind this, and it connects to something because there's another article I got that Arthur Hayes is being quoted on. Yo, this dude and the blogs that he's writing now, I really think people are not giving him his due on how much he is really understanding how this space is and like what's coming down the pike. But that's just my thought. I'll get into that story in a minute. So jumping onto this part here of Coin Time Economics, a unique framework for analyzing Bitcoin. The Coin Time Economics, here's the white paper, explains that coin blocks are the product of the number of Bitcoin multiplied by the number of blocks they are held without moving. For instance, 10 Bitcoins held for 10 blocks would equal 100 coin blocks. This method aims to capture the real economic weight and importance of Bitcoin based on the time it remains dormant. Okay, so let me finish this line. The longer the Bitcoin is unmoved, the higher its coin time and implied economic significance. So here's the thing about that. This is to me sideways talking, like trying to say that it's a store of value argument of like, well, this would be a metric for store of value. If I can hold it this long and then it still has a higher value the longer that I hold it, that's what this almost sounds like to me. But I'm still not 100% getting it. But from at least what I've read, it still doesn't sound to me like this is something that is supposed to be presented to the regular everyday person. This sounds to me like a new metric method that will be presented to institutional and more bigger financial end players because there will be a different not method, but purpose for how they look to analyze the Bitcoin on-chain activity, the Bitcoin market, and then its comparison to other crypto. That's my thought process on this, which then means what is Kathy's and her researchers and Glassnode's people aware of how the industry is going to come into the space now that the SEC has been doing what it's been doing to cut people by the knees, to put people in jail, to have people under investigation. I just seen something earlier today that said BitBoy's name in connection with investigations. I don't know how true it is. Ooh, Jesus. Sorry about that. But my point being is, what got them to generate this research to then be like, well, we need to find another way, another type of metric to evaluate the value of Bitcoin in particular. And I imagine this would then later carry over into other crypto. There's no way it doesn't, which then gets me to the point of, so what do you do with the rest of the non-crypto market? Like, is it how do I say this? In my mind, is this solely only a framework usable to cryptocurrencies? And that includes tokens. Arguably, would this even apply to stablecoins because of how they work? I don't know. Let me jump into a couple other lines so y'all get like kind of why I'm I'm not understanding where the benefit of this comes in unless you're an actual financial institution, because this doesn't, to me, make sense at the retail side, especially when you look at it and go, who remembers when Bitcoin wasn't about getting rich? It was about having another financial means, an economic sovereignty option to be able to conduct financial transactions without having Big Brother in your pocket or someone else basically telling you when and where and how you can spend, hold, and save. That was the original thing right there. So to then get to this thing, it's just like, this doesn't make sense, because it almost sounds like you're countering the intention and the description of the white paper, of the Bitcoin white paper, not the Cathie Wood Coin Time Economic white paper. To me, this counters that. To me, I could be totally wrong. Comments are open. Like I always say, we don't delete, we do keep receipts though. So if you counter me, I appreciate it. Help me sharpen my sword and how I think about these things. Say something that might get me to be like, all right, you know what, you're right. I'm with you. But as I read this, and for the umpteenth time, it doesn't seem to me as though this is something that will be relevant to the retail, the everyday average Joe market, especially when you also look at the standpoint of what happened to this being about economic inclusiveness. Like, what happened to this being about, oh, anybody can have access to crypto, to Bitcoin in particular. Like, this is the stuff that irks me about when you watch how the financial folks move into the space. They don't give two shits about inclusion. They don't give two shits about economic sovereignty. But anywho, let me jump on to another little joint. So Coin Time Economics introduces metrics such as coin blocks created, destroyed, and stored to describe Bitcoin's economic state over time. It also proposes ratios such as liveliness, which measures network activity, and voltedness, which gauges inactivity. So that's like, all right, is somebody staking this? Like, it's almost like you're trying to find a new way to come up with what is money velocity, like new labels for money velocity. That's what I just thought of that one now. When applied to Bitcoin supply, this framework distinguishes between active supply and voltage supply to assess true inflation and other factors. So here's my question though. A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, right? The only reason, not the only reason, but the main thing of why the dollar value of a Bitcoin goes up and down is because there's an issue with the dollar and the larger economics behind the dollar. It's not the Bitcoin. So there's another reason why this doesn't make sense to me on how they're arguing it. Like, it almost sounds like they're trying to redefine money velocity in terms of this. But anywho, let me stop trying to beat this horse. Again, link for this will be in the description. Y'all can definitely follow up on it. I highly encourage the due diligence. I keep saying it. I highly encourage the due diligence. Because there's going to be a lot of folks coming out trying to pull the wokey doke over you, especially as we get closer to the halving in Bitcoin. And if you're new to this, just get ready for the roller coaster, because it's about to get real. What is it? FTX just had a situation with a data leak through a third party company that was dealing with the whole claims thing with people. So that's about to be a whole nother situation. People are going to get got. We all know that. It's a numbers game. But anywho, jump into this next one. Justin PM, Modi champions global tech rules for cryptocurrency. Now, if this is the guy who I think it is, and we've said this, King said this, Zay said this, I've said this, cryptocurrencies, including of Bitcoin, stablecoins, will be a part of the political dialogue going into 2024. I've said that about the things here in the States, as well as it being at the state, well, in the States, as far as the US and presidential election, as well as what's going to be kicked around at the state election level, as well as mayoral election levels. Like, this is going to trickle down all the way, and it's also going to do the same thing in the global, well, not global, but global, yes, but in other countries, and when they're going through their political cycles. This crypto thing is going to be more of a part of the conversation, and to me, this is an indicator of, okay, this dude, if it's the guy who I'm thinking it is, Modi is definitely not in the best position in his country right now as far as his political equity, in that I think there's another person that they're trying to push to saying that he could be the real competition for him. And so let me just jump into a couple of things that he's saying, and then I'll get into why I'm making this connection I'm making. So PM Modi champions global unity in regulating fast-paced tech evolution, advocating for inclusive rules on crypto and emerging technologies. So I didn't actually look at what his actual speech was. If you definitely want to dig in on that, the link is in this. The hyperlink is in this article, so you can definitely follow up on that. Underlying the accelerated growth of technologies, Prime Minister Modi has emphasized the importance of adopting and harmonizing these advancements globally. In recent interactions, PM Modi took the opportunity to discuss the ever-growing realms of cryptocurrencies. Now, my man is pro 100% regulation. Don't get it twisted. He's not being pro crypto in terms of economic sovereignty for the people. That is not what is going on here. He is pro regulation in terms of the government locking it down. Okay, that's what's happening. And so I'll read one of his quotes. Hence, recognizing the rapid transformation technology undergoes, ignoring or wishing it away isn't an option, he shared. Additionally, he shed light on how the world needs a unified approach to regulations. He advocated for rules that transcend geographical boundaries, avoiding a singular nation-focused perspective. That's almost like one world, one government, but whatever, whatever. All right, everybody's gonna be on the same accord. What is? Oh, okay. I'm like, what happened just now? So, yeah. And I'm not saying he's a dumb guy or anything like that. I'm not trying to go sideways on nobody like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is expect to hear more crypto talk from other countries as they approach their election cycles or their election seasons, right? So we're going to hear some stuff come out of Europe. We already understand some of the things coming out of like Central African Republic, Nigeria, Ghana. But I mean like more of a heavy talk, like it's a talking point in their campaign. We already see what Costa Rica is doing. We already see what's going on with, what is that, Brazil. We already see, I think it's the Japanese or the South Korean prime minister. One of them, I can't remember which one, is like pro crypto. The point is that it's moving across that segment of our world right now. And I got another article too that is actually another point of where it's moving to. So yeah, again, I only threw that story out there to show that it's not just a US thing of crypto entering into politics as a talking point. That was why I shared that story. Now jumping into this next one, Arthur Hayes says Larry Fink and BlackRock coming for Bitcoin and crypto industry. Here's how. So, I really think he's not giving his flowers for how he understands the space and how he does his blogs. And granted, if you're not a reading person, his blogs are kind of long, okay? But like he definitely gives insight to go, hey, here's what I know because I'm a multi-billionaire person and things come across my radar and I've been in this space for how long? And I see how the government moves in the US, and I also understand how governments move in other countries. And I also understand how this private sector side is moving and who's the players. So he basically, which one am I going to read? This line here. So what I'm trying to say is that crypto itself has never been the problem. The issue is who owns it. Does it make sense now why banks and asset managers all of a sudden warmed up to crypto as soon as their competition was deaded? Meaning that you had the regulators going after different founders, going after companies. The regulations got tightened. I keep calling Biden's executive order the dog whistle. It made it that everyone ran out to go cut and do what they could do to get their jurisdictional lane in the space. So you're looking at the SEC, the NC, what is the FinCEN? I forgot the name of that other financial agency. And then you're looking at even DOJ. You're looking at what the FBI is doing. Like everyone ran out to get their piece. Okay. So then he says, they know the government is coming for the deposit base, and they need to make sure that the only available antidote to inflation, crypto, is under their control. TradeFi banks and asset managers will offer crypto exchange traded funds, ETFs, or similar type managed products that give the client a crypto derivative in exchange for fiat cash. The fund managers get to charge erroneous fees because they are the only game in town that allow investors to easily sell fiat for crypto financial return. If crypto in the coming decade can have a larger monetary systemic impact than the Eurodollar market, then TradeFi can more than recoup their losses due to unfavorable banking regulations. They do this by becoming the crypto gatekeepers for their multi-trillion-dollar deposit bases, which means if you still out here trying to do the base part of let me work this job, get paid in a fiat, that's already the banking sector. That's already traditional financial institutions offering you traditional financial instrument, which is fiat. And again, you can read this article, follow a bit on your own due time, do your own due diligence. Again, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial advisor. Just so happens to be I've been around for a bit, and like I read the news and go through all of this enough. The point being is, if you're a reader, I definitely would recommend tapping into Arthur Hayes stuff, just so like you can get a different perspective than like who's around you on average, because your man definitely be dropping some stuff, man. So yeah, and so this I'm tying this into the Kathy story about the ARK Invest and the Glassnode thing of the coin time economics, right? So again, bringing this to the point of what things are they aware of based on their experience, based on the conversations they're having, based on how they're seeing money move around, based on how they're hearing who got hired where, to make ARK Invest and Glassnode go, we should come up with a new framework to evaluate Bitcoin. Other thing to know, I'm going to tie this into another story that I'm going to close this out with, about the mining stuff. I've been seeing a number of mining stories pop up over the last, I want to say, like the last month, so like 4 weeks. Not like the month itself of like the month of July, but like over the last 4 weeks, I've seen a number of mining stories popping up, things stateside as well as overseas. Something is going on in my mind. Something is going on. When I combine what's going on with ARK Invest and the Glassnode thing that they're doing, when you put into context what Arthur's talking about, and then again, looking at the number of stories that's been coming out over the last couple of weeks in relation to crypto mining, as far as the regulatory side, as far as companies that are raising funds, as far as companies that were doing the whole leveraging thing of when the price was up, they were borrowing more money. And now that the Bitcoin price is down, they're in the red, they're underwater. Now what they got to do? They got to sell off their whole facility for dirt cheap, or at least turn off part of their setup. Like, there's some stuff happening on that side of the space that's not really, in my mind, being talked about or put in the proper context. And I think what Arthur's throwing in there, granted, it's seemingly more focused on the bank side of it, but I think there's a play happening on the mining side too, in relation to players at this like Arthur Fink BlackRock level. Now, I'm going to jump off into this next story and close it out here. So this one is called Oman Invests Millions in Crypto Amid Questions of Whether It's Sharia Compliant. So as you saw in the title, I had, would Allah be cool with Bitcoin or crypto? Was it Bitcoin, crypto, or CBDCs? And not trying to disrespect anyone in the Islamic faith, not trying to disrespect anyone who believes in Allah. It was just one of those clickbait title things. And here's how I'm explaining this out. So basically what happened is this, and the article does the same thing too, of trying to throw it in there where it's like, well, is crypto Sharia? If you don't know, basically the idea behind Sharia is something halal or is it haram? Haram is Haram. And the idea is this like, is this good morally or is it not? Is it good ethically or is it not? So if it's halal, it's good. If it's haram, it's not. And so they initially, when you get this title, it comes off as a religious framing, right? It's put in this religious context. But here's the thing to understand, and I'm probably not going to go into, I'm not. So the title gives you a religious framing to think of it as you read the article. And what I'll say is, damn, okay. Even the subtitle, the debate is ongoing among Islamic scholars at a time when the Muslim world is foregoing ahead in crypto adoption. So they show you a guy with the kufi on and blah, 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 sitting at the desk. Okay, so the Sultan of Oman, located in the southeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula, is tightening its embrace on crypto after a recent round of multi-million investments in this month. The West Asian, I'm at a loss as when did Oman become a West Asian nation? I've never heard it described like that. Never. But anywho, the point being is that the kingdom has dropped some serious money into building mining facilities, and they're looking to go forward and actually expand off into other parts of the space. The whole question is what the Sultan is looking to do, is this something that would be considered halal or is it haram? And so you have the religious leaders in places like Iran, like Iraq, like Kuwait, some are saying, well, yes, this is halal because Bitcoin itself, if you go off of Bitcoin itself, doesn't have, what is the thing? You're not supposed to get extra. And I'm trying to think of the word and I cannot think of the word right now. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm doing a bad explanation of there's a small distinction, and it's not a small, but it's an important enough distinction where you have some imams saying crypto, including Bitcoin, is halal, and then you have others going, well, no, the crypto side stuff, the shitcoin stuff, is haram, because it's not making money off of like hard work. It's just an extra added inflation thing. It's gambling, and that's not halal. Okay, so you have that going on. But here's the thing, like, to understand about this, it is initially being framed as a religious conversation, but this is not just a religious conversation. And this is what I don't like about how this particular article is framed out. The bigger thing is this is a geopolitical situation for the nation of the kingdom of Oman, in that you can't be the leader of a sovereign state and then say, well, I see that the financial landscape is changing based on technology and the medium of exchange being used, and then go, wait a minute, I'm not going to touch that because my religious edicts say it is this. If I have to decide and figure out how to make it that my nation state can be a viable player going forward and hold its own and conduct multipolar bilateral trade agreements with the other nations around me and afar from me, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to figure out how to get involved in this new financial system. Because if I don't, that's going to leave us out of the bigger global thing, as well as even just with the neighboring countries. And when I thought about this, when I was reading this earlier, what I also thought about was from the standpoint of, look at how OPEC works, right? You have a product, and everyone kind of understands at this point that there's a level of manipulation that happens in the oil market. But yet all of the major houses, all of the major royal families in the Arabic nations are cool with it. And they're all Muslim. So it's like, so y'all figured it out back in the 50s, how to get into the oil market and then make multi-billion-dollar deals and investments. I imagine, and this is, again, no disrespect to anybody of the Islamic faith, anyone who is in that way of life, in that region of the world or over here. But I'm looking at it going, if we're talking about the sovereignty and the longevity of a nation, they're going to figure out some way to make it work. And this goes into another point about looking at how this mass adoption thing works out. You have the financial sector, which is a low-hanging fruit. You have the political conversations that are springing up left and right around countries trying to figure out how to integrate it within their financial and economic systems, right? As well as like the political talking points around elections. Now you get into the religious groups who are having their part of it. They got to figure out, hey, like imagine when you start hearing the Catholic Church talking about, well, the Pope is going to take donations in blah, blah, blah crypto. Or when you start hearing something about like Taoism or Buddhism saying, well, what we're going to do is, in order to help our people who are like scattered across, everyone's going to get some kind of crypto wallet. So when they're wherever they are, we can just send them funds that way. Like, eventually that's going to be a part of the conversation. It's just that some groups are having the conversations louder than others, as well as before others. That's how I'm looking at this, and I'm just going to close it out on that one. Let you see this young man's smiling face and almost looking like a unibrow thing. No disrespect to the unibrow folks, okay? No disrespect. But yeah, I'm gonna close it out on that one. I think that these are some good indicators and significant things as far as like, yo, the mass adoption thing is happening. Is it playing out the way that we thought 5-8 years ago? Not necessarily. Is it as draconian? Yeah, some of it. Is it as hopeful and as like, all right, I see the potential? Yeah, some of that too. But we can't avoid the growing pains. That's the bottom line of this whole thing. We'll get to where we get, but we're not going to be able to avoid the growing pains. Like, granted, Caitlin Long really wants to try to avoid the growing pains for crypto adoption. I don't see it happening. I really don't. But that's a whole other thing onto itself. Anywho, folks, as I say, what is it? I got the Metaverse is the Other Side, which we do on Thursdays, me and 3D, where we talk about metaverse-related stuff. Again, we're not price talk people. We're just two geeks who kind of geek out on Twitter Spaces. And then we do the replay on Saturdays around the 12-ish timeline. And so, yeah, that's what we do over there. If you didn't know, I had the other show called Metaverse is the Other Side, where I'm a co-host. And then for this, it's just me. This is Week in Crypto, and this is what I do. I appreciate, again, the folks who are tapping in. If you're a first-time person, thank you for coming in. If you've been with me for a minute, I appreciate you for coming back. And yeah, hopefully something I said clicks, it makes sense, or it gets you to question some things. And again, if I'm way off, yo, comments is always open, and you can see me at the 10ish hour when King and Zay go live. All right, in the comments, you know what it is. And so, as I say, have a productive over busy day. If it cannot be a productive over a busy day, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. And so, yeah, from one human to the next, that is the best that I can wish you, and I do appreciate. So, one, y'all.